Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. Late Tuesday night, the Florida State commitment sweatshirt comes back on. Former Nebraska edge rusher James Williams committing to Florida State Dill, a player that we know quite well going back to the 2023 year, where you see this walk-on edge rusher for Nebraska show some serious juice coming off the line of scrimmage. And although he only played about 20 snaps in 2023, you kind of looked at that kid and said, there's something there. And then makes a massive step in the right direction in 2024. The thing that fires me up the most about James Williams, he's one of those light bulb guys. And we talk about a lot of these kind of guys in the transfer portal. You see it flickering. I think there's a lot of room for this kid to even get better than he is heading into 2025 at Florida State. Want to get into what James Williams brings to the table, talk about some other targets that we're really big fans of that are going to make their way to Florida State. Now, before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Florida State fans. It's been a roller coaster over the last 12 months. A lot of y'all been rocking with the boys for a while. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, you might as well say just a Rock Boy favorite here, James Williams coming to Tallahassee. How are we feeling about it?
And you said it, like, super excited to see what he can be in 2025, because you go back to the 2023 year, you're right. You saw the athleticism, something like that. Nebraska didn't feel like they had that prolific edge rusher necessarily in the 2023 year. He's kind of the guy you saw it from. Like, okay, those are traits, that's the get off you want to see. Not a particularly strong physical player by that point, so he didn't like dominate football games and wasn't really
and he couldn't really play. He couldn't really play that much in 2023, and he didn't even play as much as I think he could have in 2024 because that physicality specifically against the run needs to continue to develop.
But again, it's coming on faster. It's like you even see the jump from 2023 to 2024. Like, that's what certainly gets you excited. It's not necessarily what he did in 24, and he was a good player for sure. But again, if he makes that type of jump again in 2025, then you got a real interesting player that hopefully, you, as you said, can just play more football, be on the field for more downs, and be more productive in that defense.
Yeah, and I think it starts with just getting that play strength up a little bit. 6'6", super long, not little. He's quite lean for an edge rusher. Put on a little bit more weight, physically develop a little bit more, get that play strength going. Then I think he can be kind of an all-down edge rusher that, again, is going to specialize in rushing the pass in those third and long situations. But there's a lot of growth still there for James Williams. And Dill, that's one of the things that excites me about a guy like James Williams, and quite frankly, some of the guys that Florida State's going after in this year's portal. You go back to last year, it was a lot of lottery ticket kind of guys, guys that might have intriguing traits coming out of high school, but haven't really shown that they've put it together at the collegiate ranks. The difference between those guys in James Williams is there's a clear trajectory in terms of where this kid's game is going. And if he stays on that track under Coach Knighton, you're getting a guy that can really, really get after the passer. And you take a look at the pass rush numbers from last year. I mean, 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, had a 17% pass rush win rate. Again, this is a guy that didn't play a ton on first and second down. When you get into those third and long situations, you trot out James Williams fresh. He's long, has a really, really good first step off the line of scrimmage, and still trying to figure out how to use that length. But again, this kid's going in the right direction, and he's going in the right direction fast. I'm really excited what he can look like over the next couple of years at Florida State. Dill,
and that's where it gets interesting for this Florida State staff, because I think there's a reason that they turned it over a little bit. Now, there certainly wasn't enough development from their players. You look at kind of some of the Nebraska coaches they bring in, Gus Malzahn, who's done a really good job developing players on the offense side of the ball. You got to see some improvement. Like, I want to see James Williams play better football, because, again, from 23 to 24 with Nebraska, you certainly saw that improvement. He's the type of guy I think you can kind of look for, like, okay, what is this Florida State program about in terms of player development? Because, again, he was kind of on a track that I think you really, really liked at Nebraska. Now, you'd like to see him stay on that at Florida State.
You want to see, and that's a really good point. And that to me is going to be the deciding factor in terms of where this program goes. Like, if Mike Norvell made the right hires here going into 2025, you start seeing better player development. That's what's been lacking. The evaluations, the transfer portal outside of last year were damn good, and you hit on a lot of guys, but you haven't seen a ton of guys stay within this Florida State program, get consistently better. You want to see a little bit more of that, and I think James Williams is a nice one to keep an eye on because this guy's going in the right direction. You want to see him continue to go in the right direction going into 2025. What I love about what Florida State's doing in the portal this year is that, like, on the line of scrimmage, they're not playing any games. They're just getting proven commodities. It's hard to find starting caliber tackles in the portal. Gunnar Hansen, he hasn't been a all-American caliber dude. He's started 3 straight years in the SEC at tackle, playing both sides. Actually, played a little bit of guard too. Look at all the Florida State offensive linemen they're going after. This is obviously a room that is almost being completely turned over. You're probably making 5, 6, maybe even 7 additions on the offensive line if you're Florida State. They're not playing around with it. Like, they're getting guys that have proven that they can play at the collegiate level. Gunnar Hansen sounds like he's on his way to Florida State. This would be a massive addition, a guy that proven commodity in the SEC, both at right and left tackle. You talk about building an offensive line back up. This kid's going to be an important building block. And then, Dill, let's go to the pass catchers. And let's start with the big storyline here, and that is Duce Robinson. And everything I read, Dill, it sounds like this one, obviously you have some connections within the family with Duce Robinson to Florida State. Everything I read is that this is Florida State's recruitment to win. Kind of like James Williams, like that light's flickering. I didn't see a ton of him as a freshman. And then you saw it start to turn on as a sophomore. Now he's going into year 3. All the traits are there. There's a reason this kid was a top 20 national prospect coming out of high school. And then you look at Mike Norvell and the track record with guys like Johnny Wilson, who it's fair to make that comp. You don't find many 6'6 plus pass catchers. That's what excites me the most. If you can maximize a guy like Duce Robinson. Frankly, Florida State just didn't have enough guys that were making plays down the field last year. I get the quarterback play wasn't good, but those pass catchers weren't either. Duce Robinson has a chance to be that legit wide receiver 1 within this Florida State offense.
And you talk about being in the recruiting driver's seat, like certainly a battle you don't want to lose to Arizona State. And obviously you got a lot of respect for what Kenny Dillingham's doing out in Arizona State.
Great.
But when you're Florida State and you have kind of that track at him, and it does feel like it's coming down to those 2 schools to an extent for sure with him being from Arizona. But I look like it's a battle that you definitely want to see Mike Norvell win because, again, I think if you're a Florida State fan looking for those signs that this program hasn't like kind of lost its juice or like lost the energy under Mike Norvell. And certainly there's an element of energy loss. So you can't go 2-10 and not have some.
Yeah, agreed.
He's got to get it back quickly. They should be able to flex their muscles, if you will, and be able to land this type of guy. Because, again, them versus Arizona State in any other year, you would really certainly like your chances.
Very much agree with that statement. Last one I'll talk about, my guy, Omega Blake. Really fascinating story. I mean, this was a guy that went to South Carolina, wasn't very productive, transfers down to the G5 level, balls out at Charlotte last year. What I love most about Omega Blake, I mean, you're talking 6'3", $180, 24 yards per catch last year. And he had 33 catches for 795 yards. That's another one of those vertical threats. And again, Florida State took flyers on these kind of guys last year. Someone like Malik Benson, big body, track and field, 10-4 in the 100-meter dash, but just weren't proven commodities. What I love about Omega Blake is, all right, I'm not getting the opportunity I wanted at South Carolina. I'm going to go to the G5 level, get my opportunity to produce and perform, does that. And now a lot of Power 4 schools are going after him. And I kind of like the story, and I really do like the player in terms of what you're trying to do. Look at what Gus Malzahn wants to do historically on offense. We're going to run the football, but when we decide to throw it, we're pushing that sucker down the field. And you want guys like Omega Blake and Duce Robinson within this offense. Exciting time for Florida State.
And it was such a, you could even tell what just Mike Norvell is trying to do, like that lack of ability to attack down the field, because you just didn't have wide receivers who were good enough to do it. I mean, you had some potential, like guys like Hakeem Williams that you wanted to see, didn't get to see a ton from him, Darian Williamson, like those type of guys who, again, you felt like you had the potential to make it happen. I feel like Florida State out of the fall camp, spring ball, were kind of telling you that was going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of Florida State fans even had the doubt. It's like we probably had to do more in the portal, had to get more proven guys. They really didn't. And again, the quarterback play certainly a problem, but the wide receiver play was
also, I mean, you talk about the lack of ability to attack down the field. Another important element of that. So you got to hold up for the guys to get open down the field too, and that couldn't happen either. And so you're addressing all those parts. Getting the offensive line right, getting the playmakers right on the outside. I like the process a lot more than I did last year for Mike Norvell in Florida State. You couple that with a new coaching staff. It's going to be fun to track what the rest of the moves are for Florida State and what it looks like in 2025 as you try to rebuild back to where this program belongs in the landscape of college football. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.